Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. You may have heard about banding birds or putting trackers on wild animals, but do you know monarch butterflies can be tagged too? Also, what does it mean when there is a knot hole in your tree? Today we'll talk about it. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Mary Schmidt. Mary is the Backyard Wildlife Curator at Lichterman Nature Center, and Mr. D is here with us today.
Howdy.
All right, Mary. So let's talk a little bit about the migration of monarchs.
Okay. So monarchs are the butterfly that I brought along today. And monarchs are really unique because they have a migration. And most butterflies don't migrate. But the monarch butterfly is going to migrate all the way down to Mexico. But it's not every monarch that we see. It's only the 4th generation in the year, which peaks around late September, early October. And that's the generation that's going to migrate all the way down to Mexico.
Okay. It's a long journey all the way down to Mexico.
It is. It can be up to about 3,000 miles.
Okay. And this is the 4th generation.
That's right.
Okay.
So all the other generations are going to be laying eggs, and once those become caterpillars, then butterflies, they're going to be moving further north up into just past the Canadian border until that last generation that migrates south.
Okay. Now, what are some of the challenges? Because that's a long journey. So there has to be some challenges along the way.
Lots of challenges. Some of them are going to be not having fueling points. So just like we're driving our car and we need to stop at a gas station,
Right.
Butterflies have to find some really good food sources.
Okay.
So things that we can do, plant late blooming nectar sources. Okay. Also weather. One bad storm along that journey can really affect them. And really loss of habitat is one of the biggest things affecting them today.
Okay, loss of habitat. Okay, so what do we need to be planting for them then, specifically?
So some of my favorites to plant right now, and so you want things that are going to be blooming in late September and maybe even into mid-October. Okay. Some of the ones I brought around, goldenrod is a good one, blazing star. The ones I have in here are late through-wort and frostweed. Frostweed is sometimes called white wing stem too.
Okay.
If you look on the stem, it's got little wings on it. So those are a couple that I brought along with me. Mistflower is another really good one too.
All right. Now let's talk about citizen science projects. What is that all about?
Okay, citizen science is kind of what it says. Citizen science is science that anybody can be part of.
Okay.
And so we're going to talk a little bit more about monarch citizen science, but citizen science is a kind of across the spectrum, everything from just reporting if you felt an earthquake to recording the first time you saw a hummingbird in the spring, or when milkweed is emerging or something like that. So lots of different projects that anyone can be involved in.
Okay, and this is something that folks have to call Lichterman Nature Center to learn more about, or?
Not at all. There, if you just go on the internet and you look up citizen science, or if you're specifically interested in citizen science on birds or butterflies or plants, just look that up, and there are thousands of different projects that you can participate in.
Oh, good deal. I know Mr. D mentioned earlier that you actually saw a monarch butterfly when you were fishing?
I have. I've lived a number of years down in Mobile, and I've seen them on the beach many times, and I've been out of fishing far enough out, out of sight of land, and I had monarch butterflies land on my boat. And I don't know whether they're trying to take a shortcut or whether they got a north wind blew them out and they're kind of going along the coast or what, but it's, sometimes quite a few. You see quite a few out like that. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, so sometimes, most of the time they're going to migrate over land, but like you said, a wind can blow them out to sea, and they probably saw your boat. And were like,
good place to rest.
Exactly.
Wow. So you're right, weather does play a role
Absolutely.
in migration. So just a little wind could just move them off course just a little bit. How about that?
Yeah, you think they weigh a little bit less than a paper clip. So.
And I guess they can land on driftwood and rest.
Okay.
And now I don't know what they would find to eat out there.
Right, not much.
Well, not a whole lot, I wouldn't think, but they don't have to have a big something to land on.
Right, and just kind of hang out for a little bit. All right, Mary, we were looking forward to going outside and tagging monarchs, right?
It's going to be great.
All right. All right, Mary, let's tag some monarchs.
Yes.
So first, what type of equipment do we need?
Okay, so if you're interested in tagging monarchs, the first thing you need to do is order the tags.
Okay.
And so you'll go to monarchwatch.org. Order your tags, you'll get some tags, and these are what we're actually going to put on the butterflies here in just a minute.
Okay, those are real small tags.
They are really small, and what's great about them is they're not going to affect the butterfly's flight pattern or anything like that. So they've done studies, really lightweight, special weather proof glue, stuff like that.
Okay.
Really important too, you want to get a toothpick because this is how we're going to apply the tag to the butterfly wing. You need your data form, which you've got there,
which I have.
and a pencil.
Which I have.
And then to catch the butterflies, you want to get a butterfly net. And when you're looking at a butterfly net, you want something with a deep pocket. So when you're going over the butterfly, you're not going to damage your plant, and you're not going to damage the butterfly.
Makes sense. Okay.
Okay?
And what's on the tags, by the way?
Oh, great question.
Because I see some writing.
So it's pretty small, but on the tags there's going to be an email address, the name of the program, which is Monarch Watch, a phone number, and a unique code. It's 3 letters and 3 numbers. Okay. So each individual butterfly that's tagged can be tracked from where it was tagged to where it was recovered. So a unique combination for each butterfly that we're going to tag.
It's pretty neat.
Okay, so should we get to tagging?
Hey, let's get to tagging.
All right. So I brought along some monarch butterflies with me, and tagging only happens on the southern migration in this area, like we talked about, mid-September into the beginning of October. So if you see monarchs other times of the year, they're great to watch, but we're not going to be tagging them. Okay?
Good to watch.
Okay, so let me reach in here and grab one out.
And you've been doing this for a while, right?
I have.
I see you just go right in and just get them.
So not much hesitation. So what we're looking for is we're going to tag in one specific area. We're going to tag on this mitten-shaped cell, okay? So I'm going to read you a number. This is going to be our tag number. It's WCM877.
Got it.
Okay, so then the first thing we're going to do is get this tag off and get it on the butterfly in case I accidentally let it go. And then I'm going to give you a little bit more information about it. Okay, so we've got the tag on there. And then this is a male. So you can see the two black patches there. That only the males have. Okay, so we've got a male. And these are ones that we actually raised at Lichterman. So you can put an R for reared. If you're collecting them in the wild, you just put a W. And then our tagging location is going to be Cordova, right outside the studios.
All right, got it.
And that's it. So we put our hand out, give this guy just a second, and there he goes.
There he goes. So there they go. How about that?
Yeah, good luck. Hope they make it to Mexico.
I hope they make it too. So what happens when somebody finds them again? Can you go through that process again?
So most of the time people find them, they have no idea what that little tag is. So luckily the tags have contact information, email, phone number, so people, if they do find them, can call or email with that unique code, and then hopefully we'll know that some of our butterflies either made it maybe to the Texas coast, but we're hoping we don't hear from them for a couple months and they make it all the way down to Mexico.
Okay, and how long again do you think that process takes for them to migrate down that way?
Well, they're going to fly maybe 30 to 50 miles a day, so it could take a month and a half, 2 months to get down there, and then they'll spend their winter kind of all huddled together on this one type of fir tree down in the mountains of central Mexico, and then hopefully they survive the winter down there too, and then make the trip back to the Texas coast starting like in March.
I hope they make it.
I hope so too. I hope we get some recoveries. That'd be great.
That would be great. Thanks again, Mary. Definitely appreciate that demonstration.
Thank you for having me.
All right. There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Mr. D, let's talk a little bit about tree holes and borers. We're starting to get a lot of questions at the office about what is this hole in my tree? So let's enlighten the folks.
Yeah, well, you know, most of the holes I see in trees are little holes or woodpecker holes. If you have a hole about the size of a pencil, you know, a quarter of an inch in diameter, something like that, and they're in even rows,
Yeah.
you know,
seen that.
across a tree trunk, that's where woodpeckers, you know, there, and then he'll move over and, you know, pop again and just keep moving over. But those kind of holes are not to worry about. Now, if you see a hole that has sap exuding out of it, or frass or sawdust or something like that, that indicates that there is a borer in that plant, and you might need to take steps to try to stop that. They're very, very hard to control. I mean, systemic insecticides are probably the best way to go. I know according to the Red Book, chlorpyrifos is a material that you can spray on the outside that sometimes has some penetration and will move into the tree, but that's not available for homeowners anymore. I know it's only available commercially, and I would assume that the commercial tree companies and, you know, those folks could get a hold of that.
I would think so.
But the big holes, like a big knot hole, you know, that's a den for a squirrel or a raccoon or some kind of critter, and you know they happen when a tree limb was broken off, or if you pruned a tree, especially if you pruned it too close to the trunk of the tree. You know, we recommend when you take a limb off, even a small limb, leave about a quarter inch of that limb so that you don't injure the collar. And if you injure the collar, then it's very, very apt to cause a knot hole. But if you've got one, you know, that's just a den for a critter. I wouldn't worry about that. But and the little holes that don't have anything coming out of them, I wouldn't worry about. But the ones that have an insect in there, you might want to take some steps to take care of.
Let's go back to the woodpecker for a second. So is that going to cause any major damage to the tree?
No.
Because that's usually a question that folks want to know.
No, not really. I guess sap suckers. There's some of the woodpeckers are sap suckers, and they're feeding on the sap. And you know, the trees are very, very good at putting a barrier between diseased tissue or you know, damaged tissue and healthy tissue. And I've never ever heard of a woodpecker killing a tree. You know, they may mark the bark up a little bit, but I don't think it's going to injure the tree at all.
Yeah, I actually have woodpecker damage on one of my trees at home. It's fine.
They really like pecan trees. They it seems like there's some tree, and it may just be that the bark is easy to see the damage that they make on some of the trees, but they do seem to prefer some species over others.
Okay. Now, what kind of damage, you know, do those borers cause though, once they're inside of that tree?
It depends on what kind of borer it is.
Okay.
Some borers are secondary. If a tree is struck by lightning or stressed, borers can get into that kind of tree, and some of them can be fatal. And I can give an example. Southern pine beetle in pine trees, the Ips engraver beetle in pine trees. They're generally a secondary infection caused when a tree is stressed. And it may just be that it's an older tree. And you know, most pines in our area are not native. Most of the pines in our area were planted as an agricultural crop, and they should have been harvested at about 30, 35 years.
Wow, okay.
And if they live longer than that, then something's going to have to take them out. Or you know, if they start to get stressed, then these beetles will go in and take them out. Another example is the peach tree borer. And there's maple borers, and the peach tree borers will get into peach plums, nectarines, and also the ornamental, you know, flowering peaches and plums and
dogwood, right? Aren't they related?
Well, they're dogwood borers.
borers.
They're dogwood borers, and when they get into those, they can be fatal. They'll bore into the tree and they can, you know, go in, you know, up in through the cambium layer and vascular tissue. The Ips engraver and the pine beetles are really, really small, but they make a lot of galleries, you know, S-shaped galleries and a lot of twisting galleries, and actually girdle the tree, you know, underneath, you know, between the bark and the cambium layer, and that's how they kill. But Another example of a secondary infection would be the longhorn wood borer.
Yeah.
If you have a tree that's struck by lightning, oak tree or pecan tree or something like that, and some of them they make round holes, and then there's some D-shaped
D-shaped,
holes.
yeah, I know
you
the
know,
D-shaped
there are
holes,
two different kinds
yeah.
of borers, and you can actually hear them gnawing on the tree. And the sawdust is falling out, and
Yeah.
you hear them gnawing. And in those cases, the tree is probably dead before it knows it. Sometimes you will see that happen when the leaves are still green, but it's just, I mean, the tree is already it's had a fatal lightning strike or something like that, and
Right.
it's, you know, they'll go down very quickly. And even some of these longhorn, the big borers will also get into pine trees and things like that too.
Yeah, speaking of borers, you know, the emerald ash borer, there's been a lot of conversation, you know, about them lately, and possibly, you know, making their way down to the Memphis area.
Right, they're an invasive pest. And,
Yeah.
and
It
create a
seems
lot
they've
of
been
problems.
moved around in a lot of the firewood. So I remember you said before, you know, if you put the firewood in the fireplace and you hear the snap, crackle, and
Crackle
pop.
Yeah, it's not all wood, you know.
It's not all wood.
And that's where you'll normally see the longhorn wood borers, the beetles with the long
The long
antenna that go out to
antenna,
the side. You'll see them around your stack of firewood because they're in there, and they will actually infest firewood after it's cut. But borers are some of the toughest insects to control, and they're an example, especially if you have fruit trees. Most of the time with insecticides, we recommend waiting until you have an infestation and identifying the insect, and then you know targeting. You know, go with a rifle approach. You know, try to take it out and not injure any beneficials.
Right.
But with the borers, most of them only have one generation a year, or they have a few generations a year, and we tend to go with preventative sprays for borers because you would rather prevent them from.
Oh yeah.
You'd rather have an insecticide there when that female's laying an egg. You know. Than to try to cure the problem. It's a lot harder to cure than it is to prevent.
It's definitely gonna be harder because yeah, again, they're gonna disrupt the flow of nutrients and water.
But usually
upper part of the tree.
you'll only have to go in June, you know, maybe one or two
Yeah.
applications in early June, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
All right, Mr. D, we appreciate that.
I'm here thinking about some of the joys and challenges of growing in raised beds. Now, when we get to the end of the summer, there's nothing better than a homegrown watermelon, and right here beside me we have watermelon vines that are growing out and all around our raised beds. In small space gardening, one of the challenges with vining crops is having enough space for them, right? To have enough sunlight and to have enough room for them to grow and root well. There are a range of tools that we could use. We could use a trellis to support our vining crops, but with a watermelon, when we get very large fruit, then we'd have to add additional support just for the fruit. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is the fact that we now have newer watermelon cultivars coming on the market that can provide us with a much more compact plant. Short and Sweet is an example of a cultivar that could work there, and they could be a great addition to our raised bed gardens.
All right, so this is our Q&A session. Hey, Mary, you help us out, we get in trouble, all right?
Okay.
Okay, here's our first viewer email. Can you mix BT and 7 together to kill hornworms and squash vine borers? And this is from RD. Interesting question. He wants to mix BT and 7 together to kill hornworms and vine borers. Look how Mr. D is looking.
No,
No?
no. There's no need to do that because in many cases they will kill the same insect. And if BT will kill the caterpillar
Right.
that it's supposed to kill, then don't add 7 to it. If BT will not kill the caterpillar that you're trying to kill, then just use the 7 or another insecticide because you're wasting your time and energy putting BT out there. So it's a waste of money. Just identify what insect you have and what pesticide that you need and use it. But no, there's absolutely no reason ever to mix BT and 7 because 7 will kill the beneficials. And if you know, just there's no reason ever that I know of to mix those two products. No need to mix them.
No need to mix them,
Ever.
RD. Ever, he said. Ever. Ever. All right, here's our next viewer email. And they're picking on Mr. D today. If 6 ounces of a said herbicide is recommended, What's wrong with using 8 to 10 ounces for insurance sake? Love to know what Mr. D thinks about this. And this is from Mr. Bob. So 6 ounces is recommended. What's wrong with 8 or 10 ounces?
You may kill the things that you want to live. If you go with above the labeled rate on a herbicide, there's several things that can happen. One, it'll cost you too much money.
Oh, it's good. Yeah. You wasted money.
Two, you may have an environmental problem. You may have carryover into next year that creates a problem. And then three, you may have phytotoxicity. And if you use above the labeled rate on a herbicide that you're spraying over the top of, say, over the top of a broadleaf to kill the grass in the broadleaf, if you go with above the labeled rate, you might kill that broadleaf too. Same way with a grass lawn, and you're trying to just kill the broadleaves in there.
Right.
If you go over the labeled rate with a product that is targeting the broadleaves, you may kill your Bermuda grass.
That's right.
So the label is a legal document that you are bound by law to follow, and I'm bound by law to make no other recommendation outside that label. So when you're using a product, you're responsible for putting it out correctly. You're responsible for where it goes. That means if it goes on your yard, you're fine. If it drifts to your neighbor's yard, you're responsible. So follow.
A runoff.
I mean, really study those labels. Those labels, there's a lot of money that went into creating them.
Right.
And you need to really look at them.
The label is the law.
The label's the law. That's right. It's a
That's
legal
what it is.
document.
Mary, anything to add to that?
Nope, that's it.
Yeah, it is the law.
Yep.
Well, you can tell he likes that topic, doesn't he? All right, here's our next viewer email. How do I get rid of city mold from my holly shrubs?
That's an easy one. I just use a hose-in sprayer with detergent in it.
Yeah.
You know, city mold is a fungus that grows on honeydew that was probably secreted by an aphid or
A scale.
insect or something like that, but it's not actually it's not penetrating into that plant, taking anything out of it. It can, if it's thick enough, it can block photosynthesis.
Sure.
But just put you some Lemon Fresh Joy or some Dawn and a little bit in a hose-in sprayer and just with some pretty good pressure and just wash it off.
Just
or
wash it
if
off.
you want to get out there with a little toothbrush and do some
You
scrubbing.
can do that with a little
too,
brush.
you know.
I've seen people do that with a brush.
Yeah, you can do that, depending on how large or how small the plant is.
I see that.
But just try to wash it off. Give it a shower.
Yeah. But first thing first, that means you either have an aphid or a scale. So you need to take care of that problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
First.
You know,
Right.
be careful that you don't treat the symptom of a problem rather than the problem itself.
Good point.
Right.
Right. So yeah, take care of that and yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Here's our next viewer email. I have lots of small green tomatoes on my plants. I don't think they will ripen before frost. Is there a way to speed up ripening? And this is from Natalie in East Memphis. Mary, do you have tomatoes at home? Do you grow tomatoes?
I do. We grow a couple until our new puppy dug some of them up this year.
Okay.
But we've got a couple that made it through the puppy stage.
Okay. Do you have any green ones that need to be ripened?
Well, my husband loves fried green tomatoes, so that's one way you can use your green tomatoes.
While ripening.
It's fried green tomatoes.
Can't
How
beat a
about
fried
that?
green tomato. That's
So
right.
there you go. Anything, Mr. D, to help ripen those green tomatoes?
No, if they're starting to turn and you've got a bunch of them and if they're starting to turn a little bit, you can take them off and let them ripen on the windowsill.
Oh, yeah, Grandma
You can
did
do
that.
You know, that's always a thing you can do, but don't worry about it. Watch the weather, and when the weatherman says you're going to get a killing frost tonight,
Right.
go out there and pick them all.
Yeah.
Take everything off, and then the green ones, fried green tomatoes.
Fried green tomatoes.
Man,
I know another old, this is old school, from the grandparents. They used to actually put, some of those green tomatoes in a bag with a banana.
yeah.
Ethylene gas.
Ethylene gas will help.
Right. It helps to expedite the, the ripening process. So they just put it in a bag with an apple or a banana. And then,
Make it
a
ripen
couple
up a
days
little
later,
bit, a little
anything is, it's red.
I think you can make, and there's some relishes that you can make with green tomatoes, green tomato relishes that are also pretty good.
Pretty good.
With green tomatoes.
But yeah, fried green tomatoes, I like Mary's idea.
No,
I think
do
I
too.
like that a lot better.
Yeah.
All right, Mary, Mr. D, we're out of time.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. You can find more information on monarch tagging and how to take care of your trees at familyplotgarden.com. We have links to expert publications on everything we talked about today. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.